In this topic, we're going to cover operator overloading. In Python, you can change the meaning of an operator depending on the operands used. We've seen this behavior before in the Python 101 for Hackers course with the plus operator, where we saw the different outcomes when using that same plus operator on both numbers and strings. So for a quick recap, let's see what happens when we print out 1 plus 1, when we print out 1 plus 1. Save this. Operator overloading.py. Execute it. And here we can see the difference between addition and concatenation. So now let's see how this also works with classes. Let's start by copy and pasting the person class over from the inheritance lesson. Copy, paste. And let's create Bob again. And he's still 30. Python functions that begin with double underscores, such as init here, are special reserved functions. There are a number of these built-in Python functions that we can use and overload with our own classes. So for example, what happens by default when we print out an instance of the person class? Let's print Bob out here and execute this. And so we can see that by default, we print out person object at and that object's location in memory. However, we can also define an str method to control how objects are printed. And so we can overload this str base method to control what happens when we call this print function. So let's do that. Let's create our function, underscore underscore str, self as a parameter. And when we want to print out a person, we might instead want to say, my name is, and I am years old. Self.name, self.age. And we can save this and execute it. And now we can see that when we print out Bob, rather than showing the object's location in memory, we now see the string, my name is Bob, and I am 30 years old, which is what we defined here within the function. And there are also a number of mathematical operators that we can overload, including subtraction or addition. And after being implemented, these overloaded methods control what happens when you compare different objects from the same class. And so, for example, we might want to overload the plus operator to sum the ages of different people. So if we had Alice here as well, and we tried to add Alice and Bob together and execute this, we can see that Python doesn't know what to do when we try to add two different person types together. So let's tell Python how we want this to work for our function. So we can implement underscore underscore add here. And here in the add function, other is just another argument which is expected to be another instance of the person class, but not the same instance which is calling the method. So that means that when we perform addition of two instances of the person class, we're able to add the two values together for the instance's ages. And we can see this if we execute this now. Python has now added together the ages for both Bob and Alice. We can also do the same thing for Alice and Bob. And as well as addition or subtraction, We can also overload multiplication, bitwise operations, or even mathematical comparisons. So, for example, we might want to know which person is older when comparing objects. And to do that, we could overload any comparison operator, less than, equal to, or greater than. But for this lesson, let's just overload less than by overloading LT. So let's create a new function here. We also want self and other again. Now we can compare our age with the other object's age. And now we're able to compare Alice and Bob based on their ages. So we can compare whether Bob is less than Alice and whether Alice is less than Bob. And we can see that Bob is less than Alice because Bob is 30 while Alice is 35. And we can also see that Alice is less than Bob is false because Alice is 35 and Bob is 30. Operator overloading is really useful in Python because it enables us to use built-in Python operators and methods such as comparisons and print functions in order to work with classes without needing to define and remember differently named functions which exist for a similar purpose. But that's it for now, and in the next lesson, we are going to cover class decorators.